Hello everyone, and this is my review for Monday Night Raw on December 19th, 2016, and they're beginning stuff for the Royal Rumble already, outside of course the Rumble match where that's already been announced. We've already got a match announced for Monday Night Raw. We'll get into it a little bit here, but this show in general, it had some good points to it. There was a couple of really good things that they did on the show, but overall the show felt like it was just kind of there for the most part. They started off the show with Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho coming out there, and Jericho basically saying the only reason why they started bickering and having these fights and everything because he wanted everyone to believe that he was actually not going to help Kevin Owens in the end. And like this entire segment went way too long and got a little cringeworthy, especially after after Mick Foley came out. Jericho does a spot where he puts Santa on the list. This eventually causes Foley to come out, and he starts rambling on, and he went on for quite a while here, even to the point that he messed up his cheap pop, and it just kind of went downhill from there. They were trying to save it, but I don't think it necessarily worked in the end. By the end of the promo, two things got made for the night, which was a tag match was made with Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho going up against Rollins and Roman Reigns. By the way, they're just acting like they're part of the Shield again. There's no issues or anything like that with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. It's just like kind of they're doing their old shtick again, almost to that point. But he also made Kevin Owens and Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns one more time for the Universal title. This time to attempt, keyword this one, attempt, because we all know how this one goes with shark cages. He's going to put Chris Jericho into a shark cage and raise him above the ring so he can't interfere in the match. He'll be there, but he can't interfere. And they also did a spot where where Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho are trying to get out of the entire thing by stumbling over words here. But trying to get out of it by saying, "Oh, this cage is shoddy. It can't protect him in any way." They even do a nice little spine there. It's like, look, it even says "I'm made in Ohio," trying to downplay the aspect of Ohio because they were in Columbus. Like, there was a couple of good spots inside of this, but this segment seemed to continue to drag and drag and drag. And you know what? It ended up being like a 20-minute segment to begin with. So it really was a very long segment to go along with everything. Up next, they had Big Cass going up against Rusev. Cass gets DQ'd really quickly into the match, causing a disqualification because he doesn't break the not breaking from the corner after the counter or something in that sense. So they're going to continue on with this feud because they brawl off to the back, and this does lead into something else that went throughout the entire night, which could have been really, really good, but ended up being really, really boring. Enzo gets a letter in the backstage area saying that he has to attend sensitivity training because of what happened a few weeks ago, where he had been locked out of the locker room, bare butt naked, and he has to attend sensitivity training for basically showing himself to everybody in that sense. And that's how this whole thing with him and Rusev started to begin with. So in sensitivity training, it was just like one of those bits, like every line seems so forced in this one. We've seen a lot of backstage segments in the terms of like these segments that they do things like that, like anger management that we saw a long time ago with Daniel Bryan and Kane, and a bunch of other ones come off as pure gold. In this one, even with Enzo, like it did not come off well. Like, the only thing that it really led to in the end, which the beating was pretty good, it led to it being all another setup for Rusev to get to Enzo one more time, and him and Jinder Mahal, who Enzo was kind of making fun of the entire time to go along with it, end up beating down Enzo, and Lana slaps him in the end, which, in all honesty, if you look at the aspect of it. Enzo is about to go try to do the deed with Lana, and he gets beaten down for it. And it's like it's honestly like, how can you call Rusev the heel in this one? It's one of those weird things. And not to mention, segments themselves just didn't seem to click in any way, shape, or form. Kind of feel for the aspect of, you had Bo Dallas in there. You had Jinder Mahal, who was in there, who was on the butt of pretty much every joke of Enzo Amore. And you also had Bob Backlund and Darren Young to go along with it as well. It just, like, everything just seemed really, really forced throughout the entire bit, and they. Sorry, I am really stumbling over everything today. But like I said, there were a couple of good things about Raw, and I'm going to start by getting onto a couple of them right here at this point in time, and that was both of the women's feuds that ended up getting set up throughout this entire thing. They started out the show with, and they did these segments basically kind of the same in the end. They started it off with Sasha Banks coming out talking about the match the night before with the Iron Man match with Charlotte. She's selling the crap out of everything here. Like, she has her knee wrapped up, she's on a crutch, selling the injury, selling the brutality that she took during the match itself. And she goes to call out Charlotte to say, "Oh, the better woman won. I don't feel like the boss anymore." And like, it even kind of feels like a foreshadowing maybe to a heel turn a little bit later on, somewhere down the road here. But she gets, instead of getting Charlotte, she ends up getting Nia Jax, who comes out and kind of just picks on the person who can't really defend themselves right now at this point. She kicks the crutch out of underneath of Sasha Banks, and kind of throws her around a little bit before leaving the ring herself and cutting kind of a meh promo. She's not quite there on the promos yet, but she is still rather good inside the ring, just not quite there on the promos yet. More reps. Sorry about that. Sorry about that one. That was my alarm going off out of nowhere. But like I said, Sasha pretty much throughout the entire night selling the crap out of the brutality, and this is the beginnings, kind of the recontinuings of the Sasha Banks and Nia Jax feud that was looking like it was going to happen somewhere around the end of Survivor Series and everything in that sense. But you also got another promo later in the night from Charlotte. Basically, she cuts this promo about her being the queen. She calls herself the queen of pay-per-view now and everything in that sense, because she doesn't lose one-on-one on pay-per-views and on all sides of that. And it's one of those bits that goes to show how good of a heel she's been, because she was getting the crowd pretty much to boo her in every sense of the word. And she of course goes off and says there's no more competition left, and lo and behold, who does she get? She gets Bayley. And Bayley starts cutting a promo, and honestly, I'm gonna go off and say the initial portions of the promo with Bayley, they didn't come off all that good. It didn't. Her promo didn't really start to click until she brought up the scoreboard from the night before, and then indicates that she's 2-0 in one-on-one situations with Charlotte on Monday Night Raw. And then it started clicking after that aspect, like Charlotte saying it's like, "Oh, you're not on my level," and it's like, and Bayley basically saying it's like, "I've heard this thousands of times." Like, you started seeing a little bit of promo work that Bayley would have done in NXT in her later times, where she still has a little bit of something to prove, but she doesn't compromise everything else she's been that she is in that sense. But she has something to prove to everybody in the end to go along with it. So the promo kind of got saved a little bit, and it came out. And it came out a little bit better in the end. This does lead to an eventual match where Charlotte says or basically Charlotte had said, yeah, you can't beat me, and it was like, Bayley's like, let me prove it. And of course, match was made then and there. Of course, Charlotte came out in her ring gear, so you had to assume a match was going to happen to begin with. So Bayley and Charlotte have a match, and they had a good match. They gave them time in this match, and both of them put on a rather good match, and was fairly entertaining to watch. Bayley ends up winning with a backslide, at least to the point that the referee doesn't see the fact that Charlotte's shoulder gets up before the 3 count, so they throw a little bit of controversy to go along with it in there. But Bayley's given the win, so this would assume that they're probably going down the road of Bayley and Charlotte, even to the point during the promo, it's like, well, with the end of the where Bayley says, like, with the end of the Charlotte Sasha feud happening, maybe it's time to begin the Charlotte Bayley feud. Like, she even says feud to go along with it. It was kind of hilarious. I do like the aspect of the character. It does come off a little bit quirkier, and it does save the aspect that she's a little bit awkward during these promos, that the character itself is supposed to be a little bit awkward in some way, shape, or form. But overall, not bad there. And you got 2 separate feuds with the women's division on Raw now, where one's with the title, one's without the title. And we'll see where they go with both sides here. So overall, not too bad. We'll see here. Cruiserweight side this week. Cruiserweight side, you do get something. And I'm looking over my notes real quick here just to make sure I get all of it at the same time here. Okay, so we really only get the 1 Cruiserweight segment. You don't get much with... actually, you do get 2. You get 2. Because Neville returned, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, because that came off rather good. But the first one, and this one actually came off rather good as well. First bit was Cedric Alexander going up against Noam Dar, and Cedric Alexander wins the match. In a match that, in the terms of length, probably went a little bit longer, but wasn't given a lot of TV time because, well, they went to commercial break right at the beginning of the match. And guess what? They came back, and the match ended within a couple of minutes after they came back. So the match it's hard to say whether or not the match was good because you didn't get to see most of it to begin with. What you got was pretty decent and good, and some good maneuvers. But the aspect of this was also, after the match, Noam Dar is proclaiming he wants Alicia Fox and everything in that sense. And like, Noam Dar is so great about this because he puts such an emphasis on he says Alicia and he goes like Fox, puts so much emphasis behind it. It's actually pretty darn good, and it came off rather entertaining and in the end to go along with it. And they did do something with 205 Live as well, where Alicia Fox gets a twisted ankle and Noam Dar ends up carrying her to the back, and like they're starting this little love triangle thing. I'm not a big fan of love triangle bits, but here's the thing, at least they're allowing them to build a storyline without the title. So you're at least getting something a little bit more with the Cruiserweight division in that sense. You also get Neville later in the night cutting his first heel promo, and he came off pretty good. I'm not going to lie on that one. He came off pretty good in the aspects of showing his anger and frustration about not being even around for as long as it is, and saying, I mean, a lot of it was very basic heel stuff, but his emphasis and his delivery of it came off really good in the end because, you know, running down the fans for not even caring the fact that he had been gone for X number of months, even though he had been healthy, they never brought him back or anything in that sense. This does eventually have Rich Swann, Brian Kendrick, and TJ Perkins come out. They started off with Rich Swann. Rich Swann started cutting his promo. He gets interrupted by Brian Kendrick, who just starts sucking up to Neville in every single way, shape, or form. I would have really liked that Neville would have still ended out turning on turning on Brian Kendrick as well, because like Kendrick's part of this whole thing with the cruiserweights, but they kind of team up in the end to take out T.J. Perkins and Rich Swann in the end. As they start taking out Rich Swann and T.J. Perkins comes out to make the save, they end out dispatching him to go along with it, and in the end came off rather well, and it did give the emphasis and a clear goal on what Neville is now as a heel and within the cruiserweight division to go along with it. And that's the thing, he's with the cruiserweights now. That does add a little bit more star power, because people do at least recognize him in some way, shape, or form. So it came off, I would say it came off rather good in the end. You had a backstage segment with Cesaro and Sheamus, and they revealed new tag belts, and Cesaro and Sheamus are apparently back to bickering again as well. They only don't bicker whenever the tag matches are happening, but they reveal new tag team titles, and by new tag team titles, they change the belt to red, and they're no longer pennies. They are now like gold-plated variations. They look exactly the same, but they with red strap and gold and gold plates to them, and everything in that sense. So, but new tag straps were introduced, and the old ones are officially retired in that sense. So no longer can you say that they that the tag champs are carrying around giant pennies anymore. I guess they're now dollar coins. I don't know. I don't know in that sense. We'll see where everything go. How people actually think how those new belts look in the end of everything. They also did have a segment out in the ring where the New Day comes out, and Big E delivers the line of the night, because Xavier Woods is talking. It's like, Rick, after them losing the tag team titles, they don't fully dispatch it. They're disappointed that they lost, but they even go out to say, it's like, oh, Ric Flair couldn't become a 16-time world champion if he didn't lose 15 times. And then Big E delivers the line, and that's going to be about Charlotte, and that's going to be Charlotte in about a month. And I was like, oh my god. It was one of those aspects of them bringing up the aspect of the women's title kind of being hot potato between Sasha and Charlotte so many times over the last couple of months that it was just ended up being one of those good jokes. Now for the entire segment, because eventually Cesaro and Sheamus come out, and this segment started to drag and drag. Like one of the good points that they did bring up was the aspect of the New Day brought up the aspect of the new titles. It's like, you guys were just given new titles after one day, and we held them for this long, and they wouldn't make new belts for us or anything like that. And it was like, but afterwards, the promo just seemed to drag on and on and on. And as soon as you felt like it was about to end, all of a sudden Gallows and Anderson come out, and the Shining Stars come out, and this leads to a tag team match between Cesaro and Sheamus teaming up with the New Day, people that were bickering with each other, against Gallows and Anderson and the Shining Stars. So faces and heels. The tag match itself was a good tag match. The 8-man tag was fine. The faces go over, Cesaro, Sheamus, and the New Day end out going over in this match. And the match was fine. But it kind of got hurt on the aspect of how long this promo just dragged on for. Now, don't get me wrong, we're getting a little bit more with the tag division to go along with everything, but that segment dragged forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So it's just one of those bits, like, you had something that was good with the match itself, but it kind of gets hurt on the aspect that, they had that right after this really, really long segment that just kind of kept dragging on and on. It ended up being rather boring in the end to go along with it. So, yeah, it was one of those bits of, it didn't come off all that well. So, this does want me to lead into what happened with Braun Strowman last night, because this is also going to lead into the main event as well, believe it or not, for the evening. to go along with it. Braun Strowman's in the back. He's starting to tear everything apart and everything like that. Even to the point, it's like he kind of looks down the camera, almost like, "What do I do next?" type feel. Almost making you feel like is he about to attack that cameraman? Is he gonna do it? No. He does eventually get stopped by Foley, and Braun starts talking to Foley. He wants a rematch with Sami Zayn because he was angry at the fact that he pretty much let him go the 10 minutes and everything in that sense, and wanted a rematch with Sami Zayn, but Foley gives him the night off. Or he basically said, it's like, "I want the rematch with Sami Zayn or else," and Foley says that he has the night off, so it's like so it can't happen. So he says, "I guess it's or else," and lo and behold, he did what else. He actually showed the what else. It wasn't like, oh, he waited a week before showing what else, because there was going to be a match with Cara and Titus ONeil. Braun Strowman just comes out, interferes, and destroys both of them. More Cara than Titus ONeil, but takes out both guys in the end, and takes Cara up to the staging area where, guess what, they had all the Christmas decorations and everything set up, and they had that for SmackDown as well this week to go along with everything. But basically, he puts Cara through all the different decorations, launching Cara all over the place. So Braun Strowman's this uncontrollable monster at this point in time. And how do I say this leads into the main event? Well, with the main event with Rollins and Owens, Rollins, Reigns versus Jericho and Owens, Braun Strowman comes out mid-match and just starts attacking both Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns as Jericho and KO kind of get out of there. The match itself was a fine match and everything, but they set up something here with Braun Strowman to where he can either go up against Rollins or Reigns. You would assume Reigns in this case because that was the first guy he attacked. So you would assume Reigns is going to be the one that's going to be going after Braun for a period of time leading into the Royal Rumble. It's leading into the Royal Rumble, as he's going to be going up against Kevin Owens in some way, or not in some way, shape, or form, but we know the match because I talked about it a little bit earlier. So yeah, it was one of those bits like, oh, it wasn't just going to be the one aspect that he interfered in the one match and then not be seen again. No, they set up something for the future with him and Roman, or him and Rollins, to go along with it. And lo and behold, how do you build a monster? You let him beat up the main eventers. And what did he do? He beat up both Rollins and Reigns in this at the end, and it came off rather well. It didn't come out of place. It didn't feel out of place in any way for him to be able to take these guys out or anything in that sense, because of how they built them up here over the last couple of months and everything, and how he looked at Survivor Series and everything in that sense. So it ended up being rather good in the end. So with that being said, like I said, overall, this week's Raw, for the most part, it was just meh in there, but there was some good stuff in there. Like, I like the aspect that they have two different feuds on the women's side. They're starting something, even though I'm not big on love triangles, they're starting something with Cedric Alexander and Noam Dar. It's a storyline that doesn't have to revolve around the Cruiserweight title, and they need more storylines to get people to get behind some of these other guys and everything. And also, you had the good promo from Neville to go along with it in there, and they set up for the match for the Royal Rumble for the Universal title. The Shark Cage thing will be interesting to see how they play off of that in the Alamo Dome, and what they'll have Jericho do. More than likely just drop a chain or something like that. I don't know what they'll end out doing to have him actually interfere, but they'll do something. They'll do something in the end there. But overall, mixed bag Raw this week. It was good in certain senses, but it wasn't good in a lot of others, because it just kind of felt like it was there. And a lot of those segments, like I said, a lot of those promos felt like they just continually dragged and dragged and dragged. Like, you had some good stuff in there, but you had other promos that were just like, huh? Oh, they're still going. Okay. Why is it still going? Things like that in the end. So with that being said, that is my review this week for Monday Night Raw. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.